Hey everyone, this is Uncle Devin, the children's drum cushionist. And again, this is We Nation Radio, the best in family-friendly global beats for little feet. And we stream all types of wonderful music for children: R&B, hip-hop, funk, jazz, reggae, go-go, calypso, and African world rhythms. All that's age-appropriate and culturally relevant, commercial-free. And so we're glad to be able to have the author of that wonderful, awesome book that you just heard. Again, I hope you were inspired by the book. And the book was Before She Was Harriet. And the author is with us today, and we get the chance to meet and speak with her. Please help me to welcome to the We Nation Reads segment, Lesa Cline-Ransome. Welcome to We Nation Reads. Here's a short sample of her book.
Hi. My name is Lesa Cline-Ransome, and I am the author of Before She Was Harriet, illustrated by James Ransom. Here she sits, an old woman, tired and worn, her legs stiff, her back achy. But before wrinkles formed and her eyes failed, before she reached her twilight years, she could walk for miles and see clearly under a sky lit only with stars. Before she was an old woman, she was a suffragist, a voice for women who had none, in marriages, in courts, in voting booths. Before her voice became soft and raspy, it was loud and angry, rising above injustice.
What inspired you to write that awesome book, Before She Was Harriet?
Well, you know, when I was a young girl, one of the people who most inspired me was Harriet Tubman. I loved her stories so much. And as I got older and decided I wanted to be a writer, I've written so many picture book biographies. And I'd always thought about writing Harriet Tubman's story. But as we know, there are so many books written about Harriet Tubman. I wasn't sure how I could write it differently than all the other books that had been written. But I have a mom who has always inspired me and encouraged me. And my mom just turned 98 years old last
Congratulations.
week. Yes, 98. And one of the things that happens when I'm with my mom is she loves to tell me stories from her past and tell me about her life and all the many lives that she's lived. And I thought maybe this is a way that I can tell the story of Harriet Tubman through all the many lives that she has lived.
Oh, and I was going to ask you about your inspiration of touching on Miss Tubman's many different lives. And what did you do to be able to learn about her life? Was it a lot of research that you had to do?
Yes, and I was actually surprised because I grew up knowing that she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. And that was really all that I knew about Harriet Tubman. And certainly that's big enough, right? That's pretty incredible. But then I had read a lot of research and adult books about her life. And I discovered that she had done so many other wonderful, had so many other wonderful accomplishments, all basically in the service of others and helping other people, that she was a spy and that she was a general and that she was a nurse caring for those wounded in the Civil War. And so I thought that would be a great way to tell her story, the way that she's always worked to help other people.
And you know, the other thing is that no matter what you do in life, you can use your skills to help others in many different ways. And she used every last skill that was given to her to be able to help others. And that to me was one of the most powerful things that you helped me to realize in your book. And so that was great. So I know that you have the experience of working with your husband. Talk a little bit about the role that your husband played in this book.
Well, yes, my husband and I have been collaborating on books together for, 30 years or so now. He's an illustrator. He's illustrated about 80 books. And it was actually his idea to work on this book together. And he suggested I write the story of Harriet Tubman. And now people often think that I write the story and then I hand the story right over to James and he starts illustrating the next day. But typically the process is we talk about an idea we want to work on together and I start writing, and then usually a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years later, he will start illustrating. And so that's what happened here. I started writing, I finished, and then a year later, about a year later, he started illustrating this book. And, I get to go in the studio and get a sneak peek. And he was sharing with me the illustrations. And this was the only time when I went in, I saw his illustrations, and I was actually able to pick out what I thought should be the cover for Before She Was Harriet.
Oh, so you picked out the cover, though.
I picked out the cover, yes.
Okay. And, I know it's an honor to be able to work with your husband. My wife and I are the ones that started We Nation Radio, and we are partners in the Uncle Devin show that actually created We Nation Radio. So we know how, I know I'm just grateful that I can even spend that much time with my wife, and that we are able to make this type of enrichment in the children's lives through the radio. And so let me ask this. So in terms of writing, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
I have always loved writing. I got a lot of encouragement from my teachers in elementary school, and especially from my mother, who always told me that she loved my writing. And so once I had a diary at age 10, and I started writing down stories about me and my family and friends, I think then I realized that I loved telling stories on paper. And I think that's when I realized I'd love to be a writer.
Oh, awesome. Yes. About how many children's books have you written?
I have written, let's see, I think it's about 28 now. So I've written picture books, chapter books, middle grade novels, and I just published my very first young adult novel for teenagers.
Oh, wow. So you mentioned you did a picture book and a, what was the second one you said?
Did a chapter book.
Chapter book. What's the difference between those two?
So a picture book has a lot of illustrations, and it's usually a shorter story. And then chapter book has short chapters with maybe just a couple of, just a few illustrations.
Sure. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Well, that is awesome. I mean, I think, again, the book is excellent, and it really does a good job of humanizing Harriet Tubman, because many times we hear the name and it becomes such a bigger than life figure, but you broke it down in a very real way so that anyone, especially children, can understand that she was just like us. Absolutely. But she had passion, and she took it from there. So that is great. So let me ask you this: what do you do when you're not writing?
Well, of course, I love reading, because it's really impossible to be a writer without first being a reader. But I love reading stories. I love when I'm in my car, I listen to books on tape. I love being with my family. I'm a mom. I have 4 children who are adults from 22 to 29. So I love spending time with my children. I love watching movies, cooking. I love doing puzzles. I guess a lot of things are related to words and letters. So yes, that's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. And where are you based out of?
I'm based in Rhinebeck, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley region of New York.
Oh, okay. All right. And what advice would you give to aspiring writers or people who may want to do what you do for a living, or just even as a hobby? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think writing requires a lot of practice. So you have to sit and spend a lot of time with your writing. So I think it's good to have a journal and just spend every day practicing your writing whatever, writing stories about yourself and your friends and what's happening in your life without worrying about punctuation or anything else. And of course, reading. Reading comes first. Every time you read a book, you're learning about how to write character and dialogue and plot and setting. So always reading.
Sure. And if someone wanted to find out more about you and your books, how can they do so?
I think the easiest way would be to go to my website, which is Lesa Cline-Ransome.com, and it's Lesa Cline, Cline, Ransome, Ransome.com.
And what can we expect in the future from you?
Well, let's see. I am currently working on the story of, I've always been interested in history. And so I'm currently working on a middle grade novel about a young girl named Letty, 1879. And she's traveling with her family from Mississippi to Nebraska as homesteaders. And so we're seeing the story of people traveling west in covered wagon through the eyes of Black families during that time period.
Oh, can't wait to see that or read that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I just want to thank you for taking the time to share with us your book. We're honored to be able to have you read that here on our station, Before She Was Harriet. And we wish you much, much more success. And we hope to be able to work with you again real soon.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and so proud of the work that you're doing as well. Thank you.
And there you have it, the one and only Lesa Cline-Ransome, the author of Before She Was Harriet. But listen, we have to get out of here now. Thank you for joining us. And again, this is We Nation Radio. We want to thank our sponsor, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the Sherman Center for Early Learning in Urban Communities. And let me also say that the We Nation Read segment is where we focus on children's books. And we are partnering, as I mentioned, with the Sherman Center at UMBC by offering this. And this project aims to ensure that early childhood educators at their partner schools have access to high quality, diverse children's books and opportunities to share ideas and insights about their use. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to the information we'll post on how to find out more about the Diverse Books Project. But I got to get out of here. Thank you for taking some time to share with us. And just remember, as I always say, life is a drum, so beat it.